All right, obviously a little bit of a unique preparation as far as, I was watching I walked down the hallway, gave out some staff notes right at the end of the Bills game yesterday, and I'm watching Monday Night Football, but in my staff notes I'm talking about how this is Thursday morning, right, tomorrow morning. So it's just a little bit different preparation. Fortunately for us, we had the bye week, which allowed us to start practicing as a normal game week. Thought our guys have handled that well, but it is a difference, right? So last night was a Monday Night Football where they're usually trained into thinking, 5 days before game day, but now it's 3 days away. So a lot of things that are a little bit different, but I think our guys have handled it. Obviously, a lot of respect for UT Chattanooga to be a 3-0 football team. Have some really good players. Obviously, a first-round draft pick a year ago, so they have players literally at every position. They've won football games, and they're very well thought of and respected, especially in this building. So from an injury standpoint, should be everybody out there except for obviously Josh, but everybody else will be back with us that has been limited or injured in the past. So we're looking for Alec Bryant, had a concussion, so he's back. Actually, he had been with us all during the bye week. No issues there. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else, but those guys are back and should be good to go. With that, open up for questions.
Barry talked a lot about using the bye week just to address some of the issues he saw in the offense in the first 3 games. Do you feel like you were able to tackle maybe some of what you wanted to see there?
Who said that, Barry?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, offense, defense, and special teams, right when we got done with the Virginia game, we just kind of wanted to do a self-scout of what have we done well, what haven't we done well. Some of it very obvious, some of it kind of hidden within the numbers. So asked every phase to kind of do that. We hit that specifically on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, trying to kind of really be specific about little details that we're working. Thursday was all UT Chattanooga prep, but really try to attack the things through the first 3 ball games that we needed improvement on. And obviously, offensively, Barry has a plan. I think we are still, we're going into game 4 of a new offensive coordinator, new way of doing things, new way of saying things. It's a completely different tempo than our guys are used to. So I think it's kind of a little bit of a microcosm of what you've seen. They've done some things really, really well and some things that have not gone as well as we wanted. But the basic elements of hanging on to football, playing clean football, penalty-free, those are things that got to be a staple of what we're doing.
Coach, did it help you when Northwestern got beat by FCS school? I mean, that's kind of another reminder that, hey, anybody can beat anybody type thing.
I think obviously that's an easy one to kind of serve up, that happens. But I don't coach Northwestern. Don't worry about Northwestern except for one game out of the year. So it is, I think, a constant reminder. I think not just FCS. I think anybody can get anybody on any given football right now in the world that we're living in with portals and guys playing at a higher level. I think it really gets down to how the 2 teams show up on Saturday. You don't have to do anything but perform at your best, and usually the things that you do there are good enough to hopefully put yourself in a position to win. And this Thursday night, it's going to be obviously UT Chattanooga, but it's 11 on 11 in all 3 phases of the game and see what happens.
Do you do anything differently with your team, like mentally, when you play Virginia, then an FCS team, then Wisconsin, classic trap game, players are looking ahead kind of thing?
I think, Robert,
how do you address that?
I think again, the outside world views things differently than people in the building, right? Like, I don't even know if our guys would say FCS. I know I haven't said it. So I think the part that we have to install, I said it from our opening game against Wyoming, and I obviously have said it every game since then, and then to get going in this week, we respect all, fear none, right? So we're going to play UT Chattanooga, which everybody's going to point out from the outside world is an FCS, and we're also going to play every Big Ten opponent that we played a year ago in rematch games. Obviously, Virginia was a rematch game. We have a couple new opponents this year, obviously with Michigan State and Michigan, which is unique for us to have those that we didn't have a year ago. So I get it. I think the outside world sees it as that. Our guys look at it as we were guaranteed 12 opportunities before the year started, and this is number 4.
About how the game day operation offensively, just with the new coordinator and tempo, has changed from that week 0 game to going into now?
Yeah. Every game's been a little bit different. I think in the Wyoming game, obviously, we first time any of our players had ever taken calls from in our system, right? Had taken calls from the sideline at the line of scrimmage, whether it be tight ends and running backs in the core of the formation or wide receivers on the edge, and obviously the quarterback, relaying all the calls. It's just a learning process they got to go through. I think there's been some times where the growing pains of that has been very, very evident, but we've really stressed that in practice, tried to make it as hard as we can on our guys to make Saturdays as easy as possible. But then also just the basic fundamentals of how I believe you got to win football games, which is obviously ball security, playing ahead of the chains, not putting yourself in bad positions from penalties. Those are things that, whether it's practice or games, they always show up, and they show up in either a positive way or a negative way.
I mean, penalties have been a bit more frequent in maybe through those first 3 games. I mean, I'm not sure. How do you address that? Because I mean, sometimes they just pop up. I mean, I'm not sure if you can.
They are, but they don't. So we've had a number of penalties. That, in my opinion, I always say this: you have pre-snap and post-snap penalties, which have to be eliminated. Right? To me, those are controlled by us. Right? So if you have a pre-snap penalty, that's usually because you've done something before the snap that caused the official to, hey, you've tried to create an advantage, whether it's, a simple thing as too many men on the field, false start, procedural error, alignment error, and then you have post-snap penalties, which are controllable, right? So, players that react to an offensive or defensive play that, we've had a couple different examples of both an offensive player and a defensive player reacting to something, whether they were the first guy or the second guy, it really doesn't matter. It's the fact that we were called for, right? And that's post-snap penalties. So, to me, those are very controllable, right? We have to, no matter what's being said, if we do well statistically in the country in pre-snap and post-snap penalties, we're going to put ourselves in a position to win a lot of games. Now, a penalty that occurs after the snap and before the whistle, those are things that I think you say some people might be able to live with, right? A holding call. I understand holding calls are going to happen. I understand the DPI is going to happen. I understand occasionally there may be a high-low block or something that is not intentional. It's just a product of the play. And we've had a couple of those, but we can definitely control certain things. We had a couple blocks in the back. I think the way we talk and communicate with the officials, they're human beings, right? So how we say and comprehend and speak to them can have a direct result on what they may or may not call on you, right? I think officials are human beings. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I do think penalties are very controllable.
Similar with turnovers and ball security that you talk about, is it symptomatic of something sometimes, or it can seem random?
Yeah, I think you look at Chase Brown, who had a fumble last week, right? Or not last week, but in the Virginia game that is very uncharacteristic of Chase, right? He's usually very, very solid and comfortable with the ball, right? And there was a moment there that he obviously, wasn't able to hold on to the football. That happened. PB, if you see his play right down the goal line, he's literally coming to T-bar it, which is our technique when we're in traffic. And he just didn't get it up there. He's about 4 inches away, so he's got to get it up there a little bit quicker. There's a variety of different things that have popped up that I would say this, right? I mean, we're a 2-1 football team. I'd much rather be 3-0, but we're trying to go 1-0 this week. And the things that we've learned, fortunately, we've been able to overcome those things, right? And it's much better to coach those moments out of winning moments than losing moments.
Offense-wise, have you seen any growth this year so far that you expect to see or hope to see in terms of just the way that guys look in practice and on field, all that stuff?
Say confidence.
Confidence-wise.
Yeah. One of our major points since last spring, through the summer, and then going into fall camp, and they actually, made it a goal, was prepare and expect to win. And I think that you definitely see that. I made that point even to our guys in the pregame locker room at Indiana and the postgame locker room. I think everybody in that building expected to win that game. We didn't do it, and there were certain reasons, but we fell short. And I think now those guys know, hey, I can go to that moment. This is why we had failure there, right? And as opposed to, hey, maybe we had the right call, maybe we had the right situation, maybe we had the right player. He just didn't know if he could do it. And I think there's a big difference there, and hopefully we're going to continue to step forward in that progress.
Get close to that 4-game threshold for the red shirt. Like, what specific elements do you look at when deciding whether to pursue that 5th game or dial?
Yeah, some of it's pretty easy. For instance, I took James Kreutz out of the lineup, right, and put Jared Beatty into the lineup. Kreutz had played three games. I told him when the season started, my intent was to play him for 3 to the bye week and see where we're at. And then, I have kind of 4 guys in that window. I got Kreutz, Jared Beatty, Malachi Hood, and Luke Zarzan is another guy that possibly could pop into that mix. And I really wanted to use those guys in a 4-game rotation to see kind of exactly where we are with them playing wise. Obviously, Jared was injured, so he couldn't go, but he'll play in the game on Thursday night. Kreutz won't. So sometimes it's just simple math, but a guy like Hank Beatty, what are the freshmen? Obviously, Gabe Ackus, Matt Bailey, those guys, they're playing, right? And unless something changes dramatically, those guys are going to play in every game and see where they go. So it's a little bit kind of individual case scenario. I think one of the great things the NCAA did is allowed us to play these freshmen in 4 games, and it kind of allows them to see it, get their feet wet. But if they're not really playing from the line of scrimmage, unless we just want to totally use their year because of a special team situation, you can rotate them in and let them get the feel of college football for 4 games.
Just for clarity, Jared's still with outside backers, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
School's going to honor Hall of Fame class this weekend, and Jeff George is one of them. I assume you crossed over with him, played the game against
Yep.
him, but just your memories, thoughts about him, what kind of player?
Yeah, I actually crossed paths with Jeff as a player, and then obviously was very well aware of him when I came here, and then we crossed paths in a recruiting process as well. So, kind of a cool thing for us too to bring in this weekend. Coach Gunther is a guy that I've known probably over 15 years now. I first met him with Coach Alvarez at a Big Ten function, and just automatically sat down and really had a great appreciation for who he is and what he was. And then as time flies, right, like I would always go down and sit by Coach Gunther at any event I was at. This is back when I was at Wisconsin, Arkansas, having no idea where we were going to come at today. So a couple weeks ago, I asked him to be our guest captain, and he'll address the team tomorrow at 3:30 and get a chance to visit with the crew. And he was out there a week ago on Thursday before the Virginia game, and just hearing his wisdom, his knowledge, his passion for Illinois has been a pretty awesome thing. Obviously, him and Josh have a close relationship, and to see that continue to build and grow, I'm really excited to get Coach Gunther in here tomorrow. And then, to all the inductees, there's players of all sports, female and male, that I know it's a big weekend for a lot of people involved.
Yep, beat you, didn't he? Sorry to bring up the backside. 89, I think he had you.
89, I was redshirted, so I don't know. Huh?
No, your fault.
Yeah. Well, no, I remember him. I remember being on the sideline. I don't think I really played in that game. I definitely remember he was a good player.
You mentioned in August that you wish it a little hotter out there
Yeah.
for practices and such. Now you got a 90-degree day in
Yeah.
September. What was the reasoning for wanting that sweaty fall camp?
Well, I think to prepare you for these moments, right? But I have looked at Thursdays right now. It's supposed to turn a little bit more like fall. So, it comes to the ever-ending ebb and flow here at Champaign, right? My wife experienced our first thunderstorm in our new house with a lot of windows the other day, which was an experience and a half at 1:30 in the morning when I'm trying to get a couple hours sleep to go through that. So it's just part of Champaign. I told our guys the good news is today is obviously Tuesday morning. We just finished practice. It's a hot day today, but 7:30 on Thursday night, the sun's not going to be a factor. The heat shouldn't be a factor. Let's hydrate, get ourselves ready to play in a big game on Thursday night and see where it goes.
And do you put that into a game plan?
Oh,
Absolutely. Wind, sun, all that kind of stuff?
100%. Obviously I'm on UTC, but a couple kick times got announced, right? You always pay attention to when you're kicking off in the stadium, how that affects you. The reason that we did 6 practices during fall camp in the evening was because we had this game as well as the Indiana game. We knew that was going to be a night game. We knew the other 2 games were set at 3 o'clock. So part of what we did, almost a month and a half ago was a direct reflection of what we knew this kick time was going to be.
Is this extra time between games afforded you any chance to install against Wisconsin, kind of like you did in fall camp?
That's a great question, but no, as coaches, we'll definitely do some things. But just to get into that bye week where we were physically, especially at certain positions, I really felt it was time to rest our essential ones. Right, by essential ones, I mean guys that are playing 60+ snaps a game. We played a Saturday game, and just felt that in that window, especially Indiana, we played a lot of snaps. That was a hot game, even hotter in the locker room. So there were some things that we had to go through to kind of just make sure that our guys were right. Tuesday, Wednesday, we got really good work. So now on Wednesday, our 2s took over and ran our offense. So, during a normal game week, I'd say the ratio is probably 75-25. Your 1s get 75% of the reps, 2s get 25%. We actually flipped that during the bye week. So our 2s got 75% of the reps on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we went back to the 1s being the 1s all day. But then Thursday, we went back to 2s and Devo. So really tried to allocate our reps more efficiently to guys that hadn't gotten a lot.
You guys got a chance to be out on the road Friday, and I think just for maybe a little bit before. How do you feel like that reception was, and just what do you like about being able to get out there?
Yeah, first off, with 2 bye weeks, I have kind of bye week schedule, so I've traditionally gotten out on Sunday and Monday, and then I've gotten out on Thursday, Friday, and a little bit on Saturday. So that allows, you have 42 evaluation days, so we use 21 of those days each one. But for us, this year, the championship games are in Champaign. So for me, I'm actually holding back a few days so that when championship games come here Thanksgiving week, I'm going to be able to go out there and shake hands with the high school coaches of the guys that are in Memorial. So I always thought that was something I loved doing when I was at my other stop that played championship games in our home stadium. So there's a little bit different factors for this year, but currently we've used 21 evaluation days, so I've got 21 left. I'd like to say back, so 19 days going into that bye week too. Right now we're not going out on Friday or Saturday because I really want to concentrate on having a great game on Thursday and then having our turnaround preparation time. Wisconsin plays at 7, late game on Saturday night, so it allows us to have 2 more days before that next opponent.